You're watching This Week in Louisiana Politics with Fred Childers.
Good morning, I'm Fred Childers. I hope you're having a great Easter weekend. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. Well, the Louisiana legislature is making a new push to allow people to conceal carry firearms without training or a permit. Lawmakers and law enforcement are at odds on the issue, as you can imagine. Political reporter Shannon Hecht breaks down the argument for us.
Continuing with the theme of bills making a return, Representative Danny McCormick brought back his bill that would allow 18-year-olds and older to conceal carry a firearm without a permit. But an amendment was tacked on to raise that age to 21. Representative Danny McCormick says that Louisiana is already an open carry state and believes people should be able to conceal carry as well. He also believes the cost of the training and permit are a hardship for low-income firearm owners.
The state tells her when she's 18, she cannot put a pistol in her purse to protect herself from a murderer and a rapist. We need to give some thought to the victims.
But representatives and law enforcement agencies from the metro areas are concerned with the bill. They point to the 9-hour training required for the permit to be critical in preventing undue harm.
When we start talking about protecting citizens, we got to remember that stray bullet that hits the wrong person because that person's not trained.
The executive director of the Chiefs of Police, as well as the state police superintendent, says that they're against the bill.
We give them the skill set so that they can do so in a fashion that they're not harming themselves, harming their families, harming someone that they do not intend to harm.
Lawmakers were more against the bill when it allowed 18-year-olds to conceal carry, but the amendment by Marcel was added on despite objections by McCormick. Last year, a similar bill made it all the way up to the governor's desk, and he vetoed it. And there was an attempt to override that veto, but they ended up not taking that vote. So it's not clear how far this legislation is going to make it this year. At the Capitol for your local election headquarters, I'm Shannon Hecht.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that bill. Louisiana is short around 2,500 teachers in K-12 schools. Lawmakers are trying to deal with the issue in the short term by making it easier for retired teachers to come back to class. 3 Senate bills were heard this week. They all would allow retired teachers to keep their benefits even if they go back to work. The only bill that made it out of committee gives certified teachers 3 years to come back to work and earn 50% of their income instead of the 25%.
There are retirees who would like to come back. You know, they are. Some of them are concerned with the fact of if they were to come back, they do want to still keep their benefits, but of course there are limitations.
Under current law, teachers would have to suspend their retirement benefits if they were to come back to work within a year of retiring. New legislation could better protect our most vulnerable population during a natural disaster. This after a poor evacuation plan of more than 800 nursing home residents turned fatal in Tangipahoa Parish during Hurricane Ida. Ariel Salk reports the latest push by lawmakers.
Senate Bill 167, read in front of the Senate Committee on Health and Welfare today, would change how nursing homes' emergency plans are reviewed and submitted.
The law requires they submit a plan, but who's looking at the plan to see if it's viable or not, or if it makes sense?
If passed, this bill would allow the state fire marshals to review the evacuation locations instead of the Louisiana Department of Health. State Fire Marshal Chief Butch Browning says he jumped at the opportunity.
We're talking about caring for people who need to be cared for. So, you know, our office certainly wants to be doing that.
The bill was inspired in the wake of a tragedy. Hundreds of nursing home residents were evacuated to a location that was not equipped to handle the capacity during Hurricane Ida.
Evacuates to a place that doesn't have power, doesn't have air conditioning, doesn't have the proper facilities to take care of these elderly patients. And tragically, you know, a number of them died.
Browning says they are equipped to take on this responsibility so that another tragedy like this doesn't happen again.
It just really makes sense that we use our resources to be a partner in this and really create a unified standard one-stop shop across the state.
Next step, the bill will go to the Senate floor, possibly as soon as next week. Ariel Salk, NBC Local 33 News.
State lawmakers want to take away some of the governor's power. They plan to do so with a bill that would allow them to vote to end an emergency declaration. Representative Larry Freeman's bill would allow the House or Senate to vote to end parts of an emergency order. This comes after many shared their frustrations with the limitations that came with public health orders during the pandemic.
In the future, if this happens again, we just want to make sure that decisions that are being made is correct and that there's a way to check and balance those decisions by the legislative branch.
A similar bill was vetoed by the governor last year. This bill has slightly more tailored language in hopes to get it passed this time around. Earlier in the week, advocates went to the Capitol to bring awareness to black maternal health. This comes as data from the Louisiana Department of Health shows black women are more likely to die during childbirth than their white counterparts. Louisiana has the nation's highest maternal death rate and second highest infant death rate. According to health experts, Louisiana ranks so high for various reasons.
The goal should always not necessarily to deliver the same care, but the same quality of care. But those biases impact our ability to do that.
Louisiana legislators recognized the dangers, and they have introduced House Bill 784, which aims to help make pregnancies safer. The fifth week of the Louisiana legislative session has come to an early close. Shannon Hecht has a wrap-up of some of the bills that you may have missed, from vaccine mandates to abortion pills to sales tax.
Despite mandates being lifted, lawmakers are full steam ahead with legislation to put a stop to them. This week, 2 bills made it out of committee. HCR 3 by Representative Larry Bagley would take the COVID-19 vaccine off of the student immunization schedule. HB 990 by Representative Thomas Presley would prohibit the state and local governments from implementing COVID mandates, such as what we saw in New Orleans. On the Senate side, Senator Sharon Hewitt brought a bill that would penalize distributors of abortion pills to women online. The law will dictate an abortion without a physician present will be criminal. That bill heads to the full Senate. And the Speaker of the House is facing pushback for trying once again to centralize sales tax collection after voters said no. Right now, parish sales tax is collected through sheriff's offices, among other entities. They don't want to give up that right for fear of losing out on tax revenue. In a letter signed by the Sheriff's Association, Police, Jury, Municipal, and the School Board Association, they call out the language being not what they agreed on. The bill is now stuck on the House floor.
That was Shannon Hecht reporting. Residents of St. Tammany are raising the alarm to their rapidly deteriorating water quality. Some say it has even made some sick. Anna McAllister brings us the details.
Something is wrong with the water. We don't know exactly what it is, but something is wrong with it.
Paulette Sanders has lived in the Crossgate subdivision in Slidell for nearly a decade. She says there's always been issues with the water, but nothing compared to this past year.
There's a lot of itchiness. I purchase bottled water. We do the individual bottles. I purchase gallon waters, and then 4 times a week at least, I boil water on my stove.
Sanders and other residents tell us a sewer line broke around Easter last year, and residents say there's been issues ever since.
We gave our dog a bath right around Easter, and a couple days later, she started eating at our fur. Before you know it, like half the fur of her body was gone.
And it's not just pets affected by the water. Residents say it's been making them sick.
There's a lot of people that are complaining about rashes, burns, urinary tract infections.
The St. Tammany Parish Council held a meeting earlier this week to address the water issues. At the meeting, several council members demanded answers from Parish President Mike Cooper, who did not attend. Cooper released a statement in response to the meeting and last year's sewer line break, saying, "There was no cross-contamination into our water system. This is not an opinion, but a proven fact with more than 280 tests to prove it." Cooper went on to demand a public apology from several council members for comments made during the meeting. Meanwhile, residents say they continue to deal with water issues with no end in sight.
Something needs to be done. I think it's been going on long enough. The community, I think everybody's in uproar right now.
Anna McAllister, WGNO News.
Well, it's been a year since the SeaCorp disaster that cost many lives. We'll take a look back next.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. A year has passed since the SeaCorp power capsized off the coast of Port Fourchon. This week, some families returned to the last place their loved one was seen. Others visited it for the first time. Neil Zarang reports.
It was a somber ceremony, but also a celebration of life. 13 men lost their lives aboard the capsized SeaCorp power. 6 were confirmed dead, 7 were never found. Each one now has a permanent place on this shrine.
We all cried together and shared together about this tragic and how we miss those that's gone. So it gave us a lot of courage to go on.
The SeaCorp Hour had a diverse crew. The oldest 69, the youngest 26. Their loved ones and everyone between felt a missing presence Wednesday.
Even though he's not with us, his heart is still with us.
Ernest Williams Jr. of Arnaville was 69 and a cook aboard the SeaCorp Hour. Like 5 others, his body was recovered within days of the ship going down. Besides their names are 7 men who never were found.
It's the best thing I could do for my son, because we haven't had a funeral or anything up in Dallas, so this is kind of like a closure.
Jason Krell was a geophysicist and the youngest life lost. His father feels the boat should have never left port with the forecast it faced. It's that frustration and lack of answers 1 year later that has other families like Gregory Walcott's in Abbeville upset beyond prayer, music, and a plaque paid for by the company they deem responsible.
It's just still no closure for me, you know. At least the living quarters is still buried under the water, and I think that's where they are. You know, we have no remains. You know, so I wonder if it'll ever be closed for me.
That was Neil Zarang reporting. There's still no official conclusion as to what happened or who's at fault, if anyone, for the SeaCorp power disaster at sea on April 13th back in 2021. Shortly after the accident, there was a call for congressional hearings, but hearings have yet to be held 1 year later.
A congressional aide tells me that hearings on SeaCorp would come after the final report and recommendations from the NTSB and the U.S. Coast Guard, and that could be months from now. It appears the momentum for a congressional hearing on the SeaCorp disaster has subsided. 1 month after the lift boat capsized, Louisiana's congressional delegation, Senator John Kennedy, Senator Bill Cassidy, Representative Clay Higgins, Representative Steve Scalise, Representative Garrett Graves, Representative Mike Johnson, and Representative Julia Letlow all signed on to this letter sent to leaders in the House and the Senate to request hearings be held.
We want to come out of this, good sir, more resilient, stronger, wiser, with better policies in place, legislation in place, to seek the truth and deliver it to the people of Louisiana.
A hearing would likely focus on the actions of the Coast Guard for leaving the scene of the rescue while some SeaCorp crew members were still on the lift boat to return to shore with a seriously injured crewman. Here's what Senator Cassidy says now about having a hearing in Congress.
So what I have to see is how the current executive agencies, Coast Guard for example, what their investigation has concluded. If that is inadequate, then there should be a congressional hearing. If Coast Guard has figured it out, then and then how can we better prevent it in the future? I understand it was a microburst that should have been understood. So how do we better communicate that to mariners in the future? Then I'd be willing to let that stand.
So the timeline looks like this. The final report from the NTSB and the Coast Guard first, then congressional hearings again. That could be many months away. Mark Rigsby, KLFY News 10.
Coming up, U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy addresses state lawmakers about federal dollars available for Louisiana's failing infrastructure. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Senator Bill Cassidy called on state lawmakers to invest in infrastructure. He hopes they will address the critical needs to the state to make it more competitive to attract business. Political reporter Shannon Hecht spoke with the senator on what he hopes to see.
Senator Bill Cassidy paid a visit to the legislature today to talk about infrastructure, not only the investments that they'll be voting on this session, but also the projects that will be coming from the federal funding that he has helped make happen. The Louisiana legislature has hundreds of millions of dollars of state surplus, as well as federal dollars coming from the Infrastructure Act to put towards the crumbling roads and bridges. When asked if he supports the $500 million for the Baton Rouge, Mississippi River Bridge, he said he will let the state lawmakers decide how to fund it, but says it's critical it gets done.
Until we ease that bottleneck, there will be companies that will not locate here because they think they're going to chew up too much time trapped in traffic.
He also said that investments into these major projects is better than the money being put all over the place.
We need to be strategic. If all we do is spread a lot of money around on a thin layer but never accomplish a single project, that's not going to have the payoff 50 years from now.
The senator also talked about his Energy Warp Speed plan, aimed at creating energy jobs and fast-tracking production to deal with the current energy crisis. He said it would play into Governor John Bel Edwards' climate change plan with carbon capture. Senator Cassidy was also asked once again if he would be running for governor, and he said he is going to be focusing on the projects that he's working on in Washington before making a decision on that race. At the Capitol for your local election headquarters, I'm Shannon Hecht.
Well, inflation is driving up the price of a lot of our everyday items. The Easter Bunny will be taking a hit to the wallet with the cost of eggs skyrocketing. Vanya Joseph tells us the surprising reason they cost so much this year.
With Easter just days away, you can expect to pay more for this basic household item. The price of eggs has skyrocketed, and here's why.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, inflation is at a 40-year high, causing price increases on many goods.
Close to $5,000 to $8,000 to feed the chickens that I have. A week?
Jerry Romero has been doing poultry research for the last 19 years. He says the driving force behind the skyrocketed egg prices are a few factors.
There's two things that you feed mostly in poultry, and is corn and soybean meal. And the soybean meal has almost doubled the price lately.
Paired with the seasonal demand for eggs, higher prices are usual during this time of the year. But Romero says the outbreak of a bird flu has brought new challenges.
One bird gets sick and you have to pretty much euthanize all your flock. And you're talking about thousands, well, millions of chickens. The Midwest right now is having a big case of avian influenza.
Decreasing potential supply and increasing prices for you at the grocery store. The bird flu can impact long-term prices for eggs depending on the spread of the flu. Romero says feed prices could improve if farmers have a successful growth season.
The prices of eggs are going to go up depending on the prices of feed.
Vanya Joseph, NBC Local 33 News.
Well, many places are repealing their mask mandates, but with COVID cases still rising in some places, the federal government is keeping the transportation mask mandate in place. Rashad Hudson tells us how long it'll be sticking around.
If you're planning to travel by train, plane, or bus, you'll have to keep wearing a mask at least for 2 more weeks. The CDC says the extension is out of an abundance of caution.
So what they're trying to do is give a little bit more time to assess its potential impact, the rise of the cases have on severe disease, including hospitalizations and deaths in the healthcare system.
And White House COVID response coordinator Dr. Rajesh Jha is warning people not to let their guard down.
It's tempting to think at this moment that the pandemic is over and that this is all behind us. It's not. The virus is still around.
But the move frustrates Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise, who tweeted Biden puts more restrictions on American citizens than he does on illegal immigrants surging across the border. Many of the nation's largest airlines have pushed hard for the mandate to be lifted, but with the new subvariant circulating, health leaders just aren't ready. Jha says the administration is working to limit its spread.
Right now, with people vaccinated and boosted, with the treatments we have, we should be able to prevent that.
This comes as cities like Philadelphia are reinstating their indoor mask mandate. Jha says decisions like that are better left to the local level.
They have a much better sense of what is happening in their local community.
The current transportation mask mandate is now set to expire on May 3rd. Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson.
Up next, we'll have a look at the week ahead on your local election headquarters. Stay with us.
This is your local election headquarters.
Looking ahead to the coming week, tomorrow, the Commissioner of Administration, Jay Darden, will be speaking at the Baton Rouge Press Club to talk about why investments into the Mississippi River Bridge need to be made now. Later in the week, the first hearing for the Louisiana redistricting maps is in court on the 18th. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you next Sunday right here on your local election headquarters.